Hey, everybody. This is Out on a Limb with Gabby Allen. And this evening, I have the absolute pleasure of bringing on one of my amazingly awesome friends who I just adore. That's a lot of A's. I am very much aware of that. But we have Rachel Rawlings tonight. And can I just tell you that I'm super, super excited to see your face because I have missed you. And I'm so excited to talk to you. So let's get started a little bit with what is it that you do and how do you do it?
Oh, how do I do it? Well, that's a hot mess. That's a loaded question, Misty. That is, but where does one begin, really? Well, I write paranormal romance and urban fantasy, leaning more towards urban fantasy. I'm kind of an off page, so with the romance, so it's more behind, closed door.
Right.
I myself,
I myself am totally like that with the cozy the less traditional cozy mysteries that I do. I tend to take everything off the page because I just there's only so many ways you can do it and I'm tired of describing it. So and if you need a manual, I am the wrong person to come to.
I know, right? So I mean, I always tell people, I'm like, well, it's kind of more like bullets and octane than leather and lace. You know what I'm saying? Like, give me a good fight scene and I'll give you details on that all day.
Yes.
So, but then the other stuff, I'm like, some things are better left to the imagination. You can use your imagination.
Exactly. And may I say that you are totally kick ass at the whole action scene thing.
Oh,
and
thanks.
I am particularly in love with your world building. So when you're coming up with the world that you're putting these people in, does it come to you, or do you research? Do you have a kernel of an idea and then it explodes into the world, or does it kind of come to you formed?
I'm like Frank's hot sauce. I sprinkle that shit on everything. You know what I mean? Like, it's a mess. So I am a plotter, like a pantser on the road to recovery is really what I am, I guess.
So a planter, right? A plotter and a pantser. So you're a planter.
Yeah, I start out that way, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna write this down. I'm gonna be super organized, and I'm gonna have Post-its and a plotting journal, and I've got all these office supplies, and don't let me get into Staples, right? Because I'll buy everything and be like, I can use this for plotting, and look, that's a vision board, and I'm gonna put, dry erase. Yeah, fantastic.
I have sticky notes that are 24 by 36 inches that I was like, I'm gonna smack this on a door and we're just gonna go, and they're still sitting over there. I did write them off on my taxes. I just didn't actually ever use them.
Right?
Don't tell anyone. Don't tell anyone.
Or I'll be like, but this journal's so pretty, but I don't want to write in it because I'm going to ruin it.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, or then I really like this pen. And so if I do a lot of writing with this pen, then it's not going to ink, and then I'm really not going to have this awesome pen. This is welcome to my neurosis.
Yeah.
Right? This is the level, Dante's Inferno.
So not alone. Alone.
It's a mess. It's a mess. I feel like a lot of times I start out like that idea, that concept of being super organized and have all these things. And then I end up somewhere like Robert Downey Jr., Sherlock's home. You like my spider's web? And it's just a hot mess behind me,
Yeah. Yeah. As you do.
And then someone's like, what's your book about? And I'm like,
there's this thing that happens in this place, and
it's magic. There's magic in it.
Yes. Although, it's funny. That is a really big love-hate relationship sometimes, because I do have the traditional mysteries and then I have paranormal mysteries. And some people are like, I love your stuff. And what else can I be reading? And I'm like, well, I have these paranormal mysteries. Oh, no. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I'm not going to force you to read something that you don't want to read, but there are so many different kinds of paranormal. Some people put ghosts So everything else is normal. It's just that ghosts appear.
Yeah, Angie Fox has a cozy like that. And
Yes.
It's got ghosts. And that's fun. What is it?
What is that called? Uh-oh.
Is it Southern Ghost Hunter? That's not right.
I was gonna look
Oh,
it up.
I'm gonna kick myself later because I actually really do enjoy that. I enjoy. I mean, cozy isn't like my first because I've always been like,
more
really
action
urban
adventure,
fantasy, like
the
forever.
romantic suspense kind of stuff.
Not even. I mean, I really have boxed myself in, I feel like, but I enjoy it.
No. There's no boxing. We unbox here out
but
on
even
the
with
limb.
like a lot of the movies that I watch, I mean, the first movie I remember going to see as a kid in the movie theater was Last Unicorn. I feel like I've always been in this kind of fantasy magic kind of realm type thing. You know, like I'm a huge Legend fan, right? So like I mean, come on. Is Tim Curry any better in that movie?
You know what? I mean, is there anything? I even watched Bartok the Magnificent because he's the voice of the thing in the cave. And I was like,
right? Ferngully. I'm like, kids, wait, listen. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about Ferngully.
No wrong.
But you don't know.
Yeah. Tim Curry is, he just, I don't even know where to start with him because as far as I'm concerned, Clue and, like I loved him in the Three Musketeers as the villain. And there's just nothing that he does that I'm not fascinated by how similar and yet how very different he is. Even if the part is completely different, you would so be able to tell that it's him. And yet there at the base, there's still a him. I find that to be like, so when we're writing, people call that voice. Right. And so depending if you're paranormal romancing or urban fantasy, what I have read of yours has always been you. I would be able to pick you out. If I had to read 6 different samples, there would be that one that I'd be like, oh, that's Rachel. That's
good. I like that.
That's a really strong voice. I think, some people get so stuck on like the particulars, like, oh, well, I have to make sure that I have this, and this is selling in the market right now, so I should be doing this, and I want to make sure that, but like, if you don't have a very distinctive voice that people are like, oh, I love that, because for the most part, other than if you don't like any paranormal and you would prefer somebody's traditional stuff, you're gonna follow me anywhere. And I, in the same vein, I would follow you anywhere because your books are ones that I'm like, oh, is there a new one coming out? Please, I need, Rachel is my Calgon, and I like cow. Well, I don't even have a bathtub anymore. I just have a shower stall, so I can't really use Calgon. But yeah, I think you have a very distinctive voice, and the stories that you do tell and the way that you tell them have enough of a thread through them that I could pick you out anywhere.
Hey. No.
I like squeals. So
tell me more, Miss D. Tell me what. No,
and your hair is so pretty, and I.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room, shall we?
I was very concerned. It is 94 degrees today and seriously humid, and I was like, I might have to expand my screen or sit farther back, but it's.
I just haven't been outside since I put product in it. Really is my secret. I just I was like, I have somewhere to be at 6. Right. It's 11 in the morning. I'm just really indoors from now until then.
I totally. Well, it does look very nice.
Oh well.
So, yeah.
Your curls are looking great. Yeah.
Oh well, thank you. I appreciate that. So when it's not a weird question. It's a question that like is kind of hard to articulate. When you are writing, are you storytelling or are you looking for technically well done? Like, do you just write it like it comes to you first, or are you editing as you're writing?
I do kind of edit as I go, but not like don't have like review on, and I'm not like it's not like a line edit, but I am hyper focused on like words and things when I
Okay.
write it. So I've been doing sprints with my friend Amy in the morning, and she writes romantic suspense. So it's
Nice.
been a fun experience too, because I can kind of see how her world building is going, and it's nice to be able to jump into a different genre, and we can still be able to help each other and bounce. You know, she's stuck and she can tell me something, and I'm like, well, we'll try this, and then I'm like, oh, I didn't know I didn't know I had that in me, because that's I don't write that. Okay,
I
that's
wouldn't
fun.
write it, but that was pretty
Right.
awesome.
Right. I'm like, yay, use it, take it. But she'll crank out, you know, she can crank out like 1,700 words if we go for an hour, and then
Okay.
I'll be like, well, I did 343, but I was really looking for the right word to describe blue. So like I do sometimes get like hyper focused on that. So it's that kind of editing, or I get hyper focused on opening and ending hooks for
Oh
chapters.
yes.
So I can get stuck. In the middle of a chapter, I hit a stride, and I can like usually bang out some words. But once I get to, you know, end, or I'm getting ready to start the next chapter, I'm like focused. I spend a lot of time, like I find I'll be thinking about like, did I get that hook that's going to pull them in to turn the page?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
you know, or is it
absolutely.
too boring? Or
right.
I'm worried about my pacing. And yeah.
I
It's a hot mess of anxiety. So I don't know if it's really editing so much, or if it's just a level of anxiety that might need to be medicated now that I'm talking about it. This is like therapy. Really starting to kind of analyze my
therapy. I am the chaos coordinator. Therefore, we are, you know, coordinating the chaos.
Right.
You know, it's interesting because I find that if I let myself go and I don't check myself at all while I'm writing, I will end up with these rabbit trails that I'm like, you know, those 10 pages are going to have to go. Like they didn't do anything. They didn't go anywhere. And, you know, often we're told, turn off the internal editor. Excuse me. Turn off the internal editor while you're writing. Don't let it stop you. Don't be so harsh. It's a first draft, and your first draft should always be shitty.
Do you do that? Do you do a first draft?
No. And that's okay. So I believe that works for some people. I believe I have a friend who Allison, who was at the one Halloween.
Yeah, I love her. She's so nice.
Isn't she wonderful?
She's hilarious too.
She's pretty awesome. She has cute curly hair also. We should start a club. Maybe we'll get some. So she writes out of order. And so like, you know, like maybe a scene from like chapter 10 will come to her and she will write it. And then she'll go back and write a scene from chapter 2, and then one in chapter 20, and then one in chapter 1. I can never
do that. Because you know why?
You want to talk about anxiety?
That's like, I'm getting the sweats. Like, I could never do that because
it works for
but by the time I got to the chapter 10 I wrote, I also feel like that wouldn't even be the same thing.
And that's where I fall down, is that my stories are very linear. And so, and urban fantasy to me is also very linear. I don't know that she's doing it so much anymore. I think she's found a rhythm that allows her to write more in a row now. But for me, I've always written in a row because I build off of what's already there. So like if chapter 1 has this, chapter 2 might not address it, but chapter 3 is going to. And if it's not already in chapter 1, chapter 3 is going to fall flat. And I mean, I have another friend, and her name is Allison, all of them. Lots of
something a pattern.
Yeah, that's all right. I like R words too, so I'm just saying. But she writes the same book 7 times. So she writes it the first time, And then when she's editing it, she actually retypes it as she's editing it. And then she does it again. And then she does it again and again and again. And it works for her. So like part of
And
this,
if it works for her, that's great. Wow, that's terrifying to me.
yeah,
I don't
well,
know.
part of this podcast is to show people, readers and writers both, that there are as many ways of doing this as there are people out there. And
Didn't Nora Roberts say that there's no wrong way to write a book? I mean,
Yeah.
isn't that one of her famous quotes? And
yes,
and yeah, if that's working for her, that's fantastic. I think what scares me so much is that it's so hard. It's not that it's, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to get words on the page, but it's a slower process for me.
Yeah.
So to think about writing the same book 7 times when I'm like, I would just like to write 7 books a year.
right.
If I could get to that, that would be great. I don't want to write the same book 7 times.
Right.
So I'm like, I can't imagine that being my process for me, because it's so hard for me, you know, to get the one book completed. And it's not because my first draft is so polished and perfect. I still have an editor. It still needs to be edited. It's not that, but I don't know how to do a draft. You know, and Amy, my sprinter, she does drafts. So she's like, well, it's just a draft, do a draft. And I'm like,
no,
I don't like that word's not in my vocabulary. I can't process it.
I close the door and I put a towel under it, so there is no draft.
Right.
I don't like drafts. I don't like, well,
the window is closed. I don't know what to do.
Right. Like for me, I write it the first time. I go through and edit it and then I send it off to my critique partners. I have 3. They all come back with different things. I go through, I fix it, and then it's out the door. That's it for me. Like, I cannot fathom, for me, doing draft after draft after draft. And I mean, there are classes out there that I have taken thinking, well, you know, surely I'll write a better book if I use 4 different highlighters and, you know, highlight where he's talking and highlight where she's talking and highlight every adverb and every ly word. And for some people, that opens a door that they are like running through, like they're on their way to a unicorn museum.
Right.
And I think that's awesome. I, however, find that I hate to use this word, but I get bored. I get bored with my own book. If I'm looking at it that many times, because I know I'm going to have to look at it again after the editor gets to it. Then I know I'm going to have to look at it again after the copy editor gets to it. And a lot of times I'm then going to get galleys and I need to read that and make sure that, like, well, in the first tally, I got the galleys for that. And every single time I put I ran, as in I was running, they smushed it and it became the country of Iran. I was like, we're going to have to fix that. Because, and they, with Kensington, they send you paper galleys and they're like, you know, we can only make small changes because this is already formatted and ready to like be printed. And it's a different experience with like the Wild Rose Press. It's a different experience with self-publishing my own stuff because I can move things around in a way that they cannot. And so I understand that, but I was like, there's like 17 Irans in here that I'm really gonna need you to like separate them, like they're twins at birth and they need to not touch each other, because we can't do that. Like, I don't want that in there. And so if I'm going to be looking at it that many times to then draft it a series of times, but I know some people really benefit from literally thinking of it as the first draft is shit. And so they just, you know, whatever they want goes onto the paper and then they fix it. Because that's another Nora Roberts thing. How does she say that? You can't fix a blank page.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. It's,
and
it's
that's
not exactly
true
that. It's
too.
something very close to that. And I mean, yeah, you need to just shut up and write. But I guess maybe I'm envious of people who can do that.
Yeah.
Because it's not as paralyzing. Maybe it's a more free process. And then I'm more constricted, more paralyzed in my
Right.
writing. And so they're probably like, well, I could never do that because I would never
I'd
produce
never
anything.
finish.
I'd never get anything done, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it is fascinating to hear how other people do things, but that, like people who do dictation, right? Use
Never.
Dragon.
I
Forget it.
tried.
Can you imagine?
No.
You've heard me talk. I'm talking right now. Like, what a nightmare that would be.
I love that you're
Are you
talking
kidding?
right now.
Dragon would quit.
Yeah, I know.
I'm on strike.
Right.
Yes.
I have Dragon, and I tried talking to it. And first of all, I found out I must have an accent that I'm not aware of, because like I'm aware of it. Let's not lie on my podcast. There are certain words that I say differently. So like HORROR is actually horror to me. It is not, I can't even say it the other way. I say orange instead of, now that one I can kind of say, if I think really hard about it, it's orange, but I do not say that. I say orange. I say foreign. I say horror. And so when the Dragon's trying to spell that kind of stuff, and it's like, the hell are you saying? Did you, what is that? You know? And so, and I talk a lot too, but I also rabbit trail a lot. I find that when I'm typing, I'm very focused on what I'm doing, and the words are rolling through my head and coming out through my fingers. I need that like barrier between what's up here and what happens down on the keyboard, that speaking into a microphone does not give me the same barrier. It doesn't give me the same focus, because I'm like, then I guess maybe
It's also a tactile thing too, probably. You need that kind of like tactile part about it.
Absolutely.
I also think, like, while we're sitting here talking about it, is like, I think I visualize things in my head sometimes that I find that I'm seeing it more than I'm writing it.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Oh yeah.
And that slows me down. Like, so I've already seen the scene like play out. Then I'm suddenly like scrambling, like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Wait, come back. Like, I've got to do that again, and I got to type it this time. And, you know, and I'm like, oh my God, that line was so good. What did I just say in my head? You know, and then I've got to try to do it. And it's kind of like, you know, watching a movie, but you have no way to rewind it.
Yes.
And so there's some of that too.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think, you know, when you're going through, I have the same thing. So it's kind of like a movie that's playing up there. And as they're moving around and doing things, I'm typing. So it's almost like I'm transposing the movie from transcribing the movie from my head onto the keyboard. Now there are times where I'm like, yeah, you're not moving that way. I don't know where you think you're going, but you can't go over there, because I would have to move you over there, and that doesn't go with my story. So when you are, you said that you kind of start out with the plotting, but then you end up kind of running forward after that. Do you find that you have to try to kind of corral your story back to where you thought it was going to be, or do you like allow it to free flow, even though you're being hyper aware of specific words and hooks and concepts?
I think I let it go.
Yeah.
Once I've lost the reins, it's just, you know.
You're just along for the ride.
I am. Yeah. First reader, you know, by the time you get to the end, you're like, wow, that was fun.
Yes. And what's wrong with that? You know, absolutely nothing.
Nothing. It's a process. It is. It's a process.
It is. And I, you know, like for me, the characters are very alive to me. And they're, you know, there are things that I'm like, ooh, why would you? Oh, now I do see why you would do that. Okay. I'm glad I went with that, because, you know, it would have been sad. Now I have sometimes like summarized things that I thought I shouldn't do a scene about, and then I do have to go back and kind of redo the scene. But I tend to start if I'm going to do that, I'm starting all the way back at the beginning and I'm moving through. Again, like I write fast, and I've always written fast. And if you put me on a 20-minute sprint, I can do 1,200 words in 20 minutes.
Oh,
And
that's amazing.
I know, I'm sorry, you do have to still talk to me until we're done.
I'm sorry. Oh, the connection's getting really bad with you. I've got to go. Right.
But yeah, I mean, and look, there's a lot of red squiggle lines, don't get me wrong. So
Yeah.
I'm not spelling everything right at all, but that's how fast it's moving in my head for me to get it out. However, I can't do that over and over and over again. So I might be able to do that once or twice. Maybe if it's really rolling, I can get, I've gotten up to 10,000 words in a day, but the next day, forget it. Like I'd rather be more consistent and write on a daily basis. Like I'd rather write 2,000 words a day for 5 days than 10,000 words on one day and then not write for 4 days. So with being more kind of aware of the words that you're using and doing like a 300 plus in like an hour, do you find that you're more consistent across the board with writing, or are you like driven one day and then the next day you can't remember anything?
I think I'm more consistent because I can hit that. Usually I'm somewhere around probably 700, closer to that. I have a lot of those like 300 and I'm like 344. What happened today? But writing every day, the consistency is nice.
Yes.
Like, because when my schedule is sporadic, if I'm not doing that kind of thing every single day, I spend a lot of time rereading what I wrote.
Okay.
And which is a waste of my time. I mean, it's not a waste of my time. It's not like it's all magic that I put down on the page and it's so fantastic. I don't need to look at it again. But I mean, that's time that I would be writing. Okay. And so if I'm going back through to remember where I left off, then I start to be like, okay, well, let me fix this because this hook check, I need to do a hook check here. This could be better.
Right.
Or, well, I mean, she's probably not holding a coffee cup while she's talking, whatever it is, I'll end up tweaking something. And then I'm wasting words that I already wrote.
Right.
Didn't necessarily need to be fixed then, or maybe not at all, but there wasn't anything like wrong with them.
Right.
And then I'm wasting my words for the day on that, as opposed to putting new words on the page. So that writing all the time is better for me, because then I'm not trying to rewrite something I already wrote.
Right. Well, and I think too that I know for myself, when I allow myself to go back and do that, I have less to fix when I edit it the first time, because I find that is important, that if she won't be holding a coffee cup while she's doing that. So to back up a little bit, if I know that something's going to change in chapter 2, I have to go back and change it. I've heard from several people who are like, oh, I just make a note and, just keep on going as if I wrote that. And my brain goes,
yeah.
And it starts like throbbing in my head. And I'm like, yeah, no. I have to go back and change it because, as I said before, I build, every page builds on the last page. And so that cannot be wrong back there, or I'm not going to be able to use it correctly later on. And making a note about it, unfortunately, does not satisfy my brain with, we'll handle that later.
Well, and I'd be afraid I wouldn't go back to it, or it would get missed, or
lost.
For me, I would be stressed. That would stress me out.
Yeah.
But like, I'm kind of dialogue heavy, and so that means I try to have more action tags, right? So, I might be fixing something that totally doesn't. I mean, they're having a conversation. She could hold that cup of coffee. It's not going to be a problem. I might be like, she took a sip the last sentence. Does she need to take a sip again? I mean, so I'm like tweaking things that I don't necessarily have to, that don't need to be tweaked. It's not like it's going to throw off my chapter 6,
I got you.
So I'm micromanaging the story at that point, as opposed to, moving forward.
Right. And
so for me, it's better to not.
And
Write every day
that
if I can.
that too can kind of be debilitating, because like when I was doing a lot of contests. I was judging. Sorry. So I was judging a lot of contests for like the murder mysteries and that kind of thing. And I found that there were a lot of people who had an absolutely amazing chapter 1, but nothing else. So because I would, sometimes I would know who it was afterwards, and I would be like, oh my gosh, I am so excited to read the rest of the story, please tell me when it's out. And they're like, oh well, I only have chapter 1. And I'm like, how many times have you written chapter 1? And they're like,
Right.
probably like 12. And I'm like, oh well, we need the rest of it, I mean, so there has to be a balance sometimes. Like I can't necessarily just write whatever, because that upsets my brain, but I also can't like fix the first 50 pages 100 times. And when I could have had 300 pages in the same amount of time, but I've got this really great 50 pages, that I don't know how it is for you, but I end up getting really frustrated, because I'm like, oh, I have more time now because my kid's 20 and my 2 dogs sleep all day. So, and my husband works nights. So, I'm pretty alone. And so there's really nothing keeping me from writing more. It's me. And then I have to say sometimes, hey, you know what? Get your rear end in the chair. And if you're not going to do the story, then you are going to journal. You're going to do something, because you have to. Although I'm like you, I have these beautiful, beautiful journals, and I'm like, I'm not going to put in there that I shouldn't eat another bowl of ramen. I feel like that's sacrilege to put it on this beautifully textured paper with like pressed flowers and stuff. And I'm like, I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed to write that.
I know. And I'm like, I'm going, you're writing, like, you're trying to do like motivation things. If you write it, you'll manifest it. And so I'm like, I'm going to do, I'm like, I just wrote the worst to-do list in the prettiest journal it's like ever made. This is ridiculous.
You know what? There are worse things, and in the end, you have amazing books. So whatever your process, absolutely, whatever your process is, your final product is beautiful, and they're well put together. It is your fault sometimes that I stay up way too late. And I'm like, I got to work in the morning, Rachel. This is not pretty. But, I mean, I think even if sometimes it is anxiety ridden, sometimes you're reading more than when you wish you were writing more. In the end, what you are providing to readers is worth it. I love your smile. You're so adorable. Another A word.
I know.
Oh my goodness. I gotta stop with the A words. So tell us, what is next? What's happening?
I don't know. So many ideas. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I actually like kind of ended up putting up a poll in my reader group, because I was like, I don't know where to go. I've got, bunch of titles, like 3 different series with titles in the bank.
Continuing series, or are you talking new series?
New.
Oh,
so they're like all of it's like new. Although I did come up with another title for my Touch of Ink series, because I've had a couple people. I'd always planned that to be a trilogy, and then some people were like, well, we would like to have more, and I'm like, well, I never really thought about more, and I just have I had those 3 titles. Then I was like, well, I guess it could be like another Ink Coming. And then I was like, okay, well, that's actually not a bad title. Like, that goes with the other ones. And it's kind of punny,
Yeah.
So then I put that one on the list. And then I was like, kind of had a paranormal women's fiction idea that was like playing with cocktails, like Cauldrons and Cocktails would be the series. And then it would be like, Hexes and Hennessy, and like Bourbon and Broomsticks, or, something along those lines. And and then I had a whole bunch of things, but I seem to be hitting this stride of trilogies. And I'm like, I feel like on the one hand, I want something longer
Okay.
than that, like maybe 5 or 6. The very
Yeah.
first series was 6. And I like that. But all my titles right now are like 3. Like, why can I not get more for any of these concepts than 3? I'm like hitting it's like the peak right now. All of them.
Interesting. Well, and
Yeah, it's weird.
sometimes people like 3s, and let me tell you why. So I was just talking to a reader the other day, and she was like, I'm so glad that I found your Tally series. And I was like, awesome. And for those who do not know, that my real name is not Gabby. It's actually Misty Simon. I write the Tally Graver series. So this is what we're talking about. And
I've just been calling you that the whole time. So they're probably like, people, it's a good thing you said something. Because people are tuning in here like, this woman doesn't even know who she's talking to. She's like the worst.
Talking to.
She's like fawning all over her, and she doesn't even know her name.
And here I was worried about knowing yours. But so she said, I was happy to see that the 5th book was going to be the last one, because then I could read the whole series.
Oh yeah,
there
well,
are
that's
people
true.
who will
wait
not
for it
read
to be done, yeah,
until it's done. So there's both camps. You're never going to be able to please everyone. But I have found that people really like the trilogies because they end sooner, and then they can like quick read through. Like there's a trilogy that I'm considering doing. Basically, it would be witches that own a dude ranch. And
I'm intrigued already.
The first one is Save a Cowboy, Ride a Broom. And
nice.
I, as you do. And so right. I have her at the beginning there at like this saloon, and she's playing Go Fish with tarot cards. I don't know where the thought came from. I have no idea, but I was like, okay, no, that's really fascinating. But how many are you going to do? And I really thought, I like the idea of 3 for this, because I don't really know what I would do over the course of 6. And yet the Verla books, which are the magically suspicious books, I'm going to have at least 9, but they're novellas. So that's a little different, but that will also be 3 individual print books, because I'm putting 3 shorts into one book. And so there's really nothing wrong with 3s right now. And people seem to really be digging being able to grab it when it's done.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah,
that's all I've got.
Now there are plenty of people who also will wait. Like I will wait, but I do sometimes have to go back and kind of brush up on the last one in the series to then remember what, especially, so yours are really well written. They're also very, like, the world, I have to always remember what all is going on. And so it's very good for me. That's why I like owning books and my bookshelves are packed, is because I love going back and reading the last one in anticipation of the next one coming out. But everybody's going to be different about that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Some people are going to be like, I don't care when it comes out. It's on my auto buy list. Amazon knows that if something from Rachel Rawlings is coming out, just put it in my Kindle. I don't need it. I don't need to know. Just alert me when it's downloaded, and I will then plan on not sleeping for the next 2 days. And so, with that, I think there is a certain wanting to please the reader, but on the other hand, there's a certain, like, this is what I feel that story is going to go with. I had an ink series too that I did for Harlequin when they were doing ebooks, or Harlequin, and it was Wicked Ink, Protective Ink, and then it was supposed to be Fluid Ink, I think was the third one, and then they shut. So I only got the first 2 out. So then I ended up using the concept that I was going to do for Fluid Ink in one of the Verla books, and I called the book An Inkling of Trouble.
Nice.
As you do.
Yes. Love it.
So what did your poll end up saying? What are we looking forward to? Because now I'm all antsy.
Oh, so right. So we are Born Under a Bad Sign,
Okay.
Would be the first book. Mixed Signals would be the series title.
I love it.
And she is a crappy tarot card reader
Nice.
who eats a lot of ramen
Okay.
with saltines that she steals from the diner across the street. Now she's pretty much surviving at this point.
I'm already feeling her. I feel like
Yeah,
like we're kindred spirits
right.
there.
And her clients start dying.
Oh.
So she finds herself as a prime suspect in a murder investigation.
Yes, as you do when it comes.
And sparks will fly, as they do.
Right.
You know, swap.
Right.
Straight-laced detective.
Of course, of course. Well, and I also enjoy the sparks in your books because they feel, what's the word? Natural, I guess, in a supernatural world. They feel very like I've never read any of yours where I thought, I mean, he's all right. You know what I mean? Like it's always been like, oh, please, please, please let them. I kind of like Practical Magic.
Yeah.
So when you have that couple, you know, and then he leaves, and you're like, no, because it really was built into a thing that they were perfect for each other if they could just figure it out. And that's a lot of what I get from yours is like, if you would just figure this out. I've already figured it out. Come on. But there's, you know, there are reasons why they're not figuring it out. And that, I mean, I think I was just talking to an interview person the other day, and one of the things that I often hear is that it's the characters. Like they come back for the setting and the characters, and not the setting as in the physical world necessarily, like I only read books from Washington DC kind of thing,
Right.
but more like, who are your base characters, and I want to catch up with their lives. You know, I don't necessarily want to be in that knife fight with them. Like, could I be over here at the diner having a hot cocoa? You come over when you're done. I'll put a couple of Band-Aids
all about
on
it after.
Right. I will sit and listen for hours. You let me know. I'll be over here drinking cocoa.
I mean, someone's got to pay the bill. That's how I'm looking at it. Is one of us has to still be on the outside.
Right. I mean, you got to have something going on in your favor. But yeah, like, I mean, and I think if you can do characters that people are very excited to catch back up with, even if it's like if it's a 3-book series and it's 3 different couples, but you're kind of like the first couple then appears a little bit in the second book, or you're adding to your team with all 3 books or whatever, like people love that because they do feel very connected to what they're reading on the page. They do feel very connected with catching up on their lives and wanting to see what happens next. And that's one of the things that I love too, is both for myself as a writer to do that, and then as a reader to also do that.
I don't even know if I'm conscious of that when I'm doing it, or if I do it. I'm like, do I do that?
I think you
Is
do.
that what I do?
I think you do.
Okay.
I think
That's awesome.
Another A word. It's us. We're A words today.
Today's
Not the bad
podcast is
one.
brought to you by the letter A.
And the number 3. Can I be the count? Okay. Yeah. Wahaha. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, we're running close to 40. So let's go ahead and talk real quick. Not real quick, but as quickly as you'd like, about some of your recent things, where people can find you. And we know what to look forward to now. So I'm super excited for Under a Bad Sign.
I mean, I'm on all the usual places, you know. Facebook. I haven't been as active in my social media probably as I should. I know better. I spend a lot of time doing that for other people when I'm not writing. So, because my day job is doing a lot of social media managing for authors.
Okay.
So with Zero Alchemy, so that's pretty awesome. There's a lot of stuff captaining up here.
I
And then
got
I'm
you.
like, oh, I should, that's a good idea. I should do that for myself. And then I end up like, I'm like, oh, but it'll be great on this person's page. And so then I'm like, let me make
Yeah.
this post for them.
Yeah.
So I haven't been as super active, but I'm trying not to get like stressed about it, even though it's kind of like a do what I say, not as I do type thing that
Yeah.
I'm doing with these authors right now.
Yeah.
But I'm writing. And so that for
But
me is
you have nothing to put on Facebook if you're not writing. I mean,
exactly.
I went through a period like that where I was like, yes, I'm doing this. I'm doing the Facebook. I'm posting like 4 or 5 times a day. And I'm like, but you have no book. And if you have no book, that's really great that you're posting all these memes. It's really great that you're talking. But if you have no book, then you might as well just post like regular stuff. You don't post book stuff because you got nothing book-ish
Right.
published.
So, and then I'm like, well, there's a reason why I'm helping all these other people because they're writing too. So it's,
Right?
so if I just had another me for me, that would be great.
Yeah.
But no, I'm just for myself right now. I'm more focused on making sure that I'm still getting my word count in. That I'm getting words, and it'll all come together from that. I'm gonna, learned all there is to, not all there is, but a lot about TikTok. So I'm gonna be venturing out into the TikTok world. So that'll be coming soon.
Okay.
And then DragonCon in the fall. That'll be my one
Awesome
appearance this year. I'm really looking forward to that because we didn't get to do it last year, and that would have been my first year at DragonCon. So I'm a newbie.
Awesome.
In September, but that's exciting. I'm looking forward
to
that.
You're www.rachelrawlings.com.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And like,
and then it's just like at Rachel's Books.
Oh,
okay. Like, for Instagram or Twitter.
Awesome. Another A word. Amazing.
Yeah.
There's another one. All inspiring, adorable.
I adore you. I do.
Well, that's good because I adore you too. So, all right. Well, I'm going to head out on this one. This is Out on a Limb. You have been hanging out with the amazing, another A word, Rachel Rawlings, and myself, Gabby Allen, another A word. And I hope that you have enjoyed yourself. And if you have any questions, please post them below because I'll be checking them. And if I can answer anything for you or send anything to Rachel to see if she can answer it for you, I would be happy to do that. And I hope you have an amazing evening. Thank you so much for being here, Rachel. This was
Thank you for having me. This was amazing.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you for the A word.